Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Freek van Eyck and I'm Director of Holland Circular Hotspot. I'm proud to be your moderator today. The time is now 3 o'clock and the next 99 minutes will be dedicated for Unicum. It will be the first circular talk session of a leadership group within the coordination group of the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform. And ECESP is the network of network within the world of circular economy. Now, while people are slowly entering this digital session, I would remind you that this session is being recorded and will be used on social media afterwards. So the use of your camera is at your discretion. Now, a stakeholder platform wants to actually engage with stakeholders, and we need you for that. We need you to be proactive. We need you to use the chat. Please ask questions during the event. We have Boukje van Rijn of Rijkswaterstaat, who will be the chat moderator. Please write down your question and indicate what you would like to answer your question. Now, this session is a circular talk session. It's not a one-off session. It's part of a process. We start today with a kickoff, but the discussion will continue in the next months, weeks, and at the end of the year, there will be a document in which everything we have learned will be summarized. By now, most of the people will have entered the room, so it's a time to officially welcome all the guests. On behalf of Rijkswaterstaat, the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform and Holland Circular Hotspot, I welcome you to this session. And the session is towards a circular European infrastructure. And that's actually a topic to my heart. And I could say a lot about it, but I think the first three speakers will highlight in detail why the topic is so important, why it's so important now, and also how we can make it even more important. Before I will give them the floor, I will guide you quickly through the program. What can you expect today? We'll have a word of welcome from Baiba Miltoviča, who will followed by two keynote speakers, Jessica Leffers from Rijkswaterstaat, and also Jan Molema, the director of the Benelux Union. And then we have not one, not two, no, we have 6 breakout rooms where we can deepen the discussion. We'll have tools, we have technical sessions about technical regulation, about normalization, certification, we have best practices, we have also sessions on collaboration. I will explain all these sessions more in detail later on in the program, but you can choose your session and do a deep dive. There will be plenty of room for interaction. After the breakout rooms, we come back to the plenary sessions and we'll start a discussion. So we'll address all your questions. Stay with us till the end because we have 2 European Commission policy officers with us, Anna Lupi and Philippe Moseley, to give a sneak preview of what's happening in the field of infrastructure at the European Commission. So without much further ado, I would like to go to the next slide and introduce Baiba Miltoviča. She's the president of the section for transport, energy, infrastructure and information society of the European Economic and Social Committee. And she will tell everything about the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform and the new Circular Economy Action Plan. Baiba, we're in great anticipation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Eik, for giving this introduction remarks. And thank you also for giving me the floor and also having me together with you at EU Circular Talks. I'm representing indeed Economic and Social Committee, and we are Assembly of Civil Society representatives across EU. And indeed, as you mentioned, we established also European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform. It is an important platform for us, for civil society organizations, but not only. We also give also stimulus to public authorities, private organizations, to exchange good practices across countries and sectors, and also arranging different meetings, participating in meetings and also annual conferences, and using our website through social media as well. A network of networks, coordination group of 24 members is established to strengthen and expand national platforms. And indeed, we would like to also give visibility also and understanding of what really circular economy means for many stakeholders. We also arrange virtual one-stop shops with a library of knowledge and forum for interaction. Please, next slide. How can stakeholders get involved? So we gather good practices, search for existing good practices or submit good practices directly. We encourage and also lead the policy dialogue where circular economy group members can participate, contact also secretariat, and as I mentioned, participating and arranging various events. You can find knowledge, news, events, strategies, good practices, and commitments in this very rich database established under the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform. Can I ask to turn to the next slide, please? You can recognize many members of the coordination group, including Holland Circular Hotspot and many others. So we really try to integrate as much as stakeholders we can. Please, next slide. But of course, what we do at the Economic and Social Committee perspective, we work on the opinions as referrals from the European Commission or the Council. And one of the most typical for today's discussion is the new Circular Economy Action Plan, which sets out a series of new initiatives covering the entire cycle of product design and lifespan, focuses on sectors that use the most resources and where the potential for circularity is high, such as the construction sector, aims to develop a comprehensive strategy for a sustainable built environment in building and construction sectors, as I mentioned. The next one. And also I can mention one of the very important initiative. We had a 10 section, as you rightly said, section for transport, energy and infrastructure was a renovation way for Europe. And we also hold a rich debate on this topic. And why it is so important, because buildings account for 40% of total energy consumption. And we can get this win-win-win strategy for the climate, for recovery, thanks to the local jobs created and tackling energy poverty in the same time, in favor of sustainable housing for all, providing clear, stable, and tailored legal and financial framework. So really, you see, our work is dedicated in different levels, not only gathering stakeholders and having databases, but also in opinions, where we integrate different member states' practices and also trying to give recommendations for the Commission and Council, and also cooperating with European Parliament. Thank you very much, and I will be delighted to participate in debate later on. I think I fit in the 5 minutes dedicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Baiba, for a very concise and relevant introduction. We learned about the Circular Economy Action Plan. You mentioned the renovation wave. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a renovation wave dedicated also for infrastructure? Nice point of the discussion. And of course, you mentioned the European Circular Economy Stakeholder platform. This is the place where new circular coalitions can be born and where critical topics like infrastructure can get a place. And thank you for being with us till the end. So I hope this inspires many of the listeners to address also questions to you. We continue with our program, and our next guest is the brain behind this session. She is the one who actually initiated the discussion on circular infrastructure, and it's therefore a great pleasure to introduce Jessica Reis Leffers to you. The topic is called Towards a Circular European Infrastructure. Jessica, why is the topic so important?
Well, Freek, thanks a lot. Thanks for the introduction, and I will tell you all about this. And I would also thank everybody for being here with us today. My name is Jessica Leffers. I am a circular economy advisor at Rijkswaterstaat, And as I mentioned, I will take you through our vision on circular infrastructure. Well, when talking about circular economy in the built environment, I think most people think of office buildings or houses and hospitals. And this really strikes us as a national road authority because infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and tunnels makes up a significant part of the built environment and offers enormous potential for circularity. To give an example, the new European Circular Economy Action Plan provides a new strategy for the sustainable built environment, and the Netherlands really strongly welcomes and supports the action plan, which is completely in line with our ambition to be fully circular by 2050. However, many of the new actions under that strategy focus on buildings, while infrastructure is equally essential in this transition. We believe that an integrated approach to circular construction across buildings and infrastructure can maximize the benefits across a number of areas, and that a pan-European infrastructure sector can play a vital role in achieving a circular climate-neutral European construction economy, also as part of the European Green Deal recovery plan. And we put this view forth in a non-paper, which we presented to the European Commission last year. And this non-paper is also the reason why we are here today. This afternoon, I would like to take you through it and call you on to join us in the discussion towards a circular European infrastructure. Next. In 2016, the Netherlands launched the National Circular Economy Plan and set two main goals: to become fully circular by 2050 and to use 50% less primary raw materials by 2030. And when setting these goals, we knew that we would not achieve this transition alone. And this is why we work together with various parties, both nationally and internationally, to achieve these goals. As part of the program, 5 transition agendas were identified and drawn up for 5 value chains. And the construction sector is one of them, focusing explicitly on both buildings and infrastructure. But why is that so? Next. Well, firstly, because as buildings, infrastructure puts a lot of pressure on natural resources. In the Netherlands, for instance, the construction sector is responsible for 40% of all material use, half of which is used by infra. The sector is highly dependent on very large volumes of groundworks and materials such as asphalt and concrete, which have a significant impact on the environment, mainly associated with the transport that comes with their use. And although these materials are hardly scarce, growing demand for these in the future will put pressure on their supply. And this is especially true for developing countries, which continue to expand their infrastructure to average global levels. And thirdly, because buildings and infrastructure are also highly interdependent in terms of material flows, supply chains, and standards and norms. To give an example in terms of supply chain, why ask the cement industry to supply high quality secondary materials to buildings only when the industry also supplies for infrastructure? So we believe that focusing on just one sector really does not encourage the industry to switch to say A and to innovate. Also because the volumes are not large enough. And the enormous purchase volumes of infra works make it very interesting for the market to invest in circular solutions. So the transition must be better coordinated to ensure that adaptations are very complementary to one another and to maximize benefits. And finally, there are some characteristics that are specific to infrastructure that requires a dedicated approach, such as a very long lifespan and planning processes. and it's a mainly government-dominated sector. Public buyers of infra works, in turn, can make a major contribution to accelerating the transition. The next slide. So in the Netherlands, the sector works together on a number of sector-wide things, such as circular design to enable high-quality reuse and recycling, public tenders and procurements, all of which will be circular by 2030. Circular use of materials through green deals and supply chain collaborations. Also, digital logbooks for construction works and data strategy, as well as indicators, standards, and measurement methods for circularity through the National Platform Circular Construction in 2023. All of these themes will be covered during the breakout sessions this afternoon. So now we have seen the impact and the potential of infrastructure for circularity and the importance of an integrated approach. But how can we now unlock the circular infra potential in Europe? Next slide. Well, we believe that European policy is crucial for this, and this is why we called on the European Commission to integrate infrastructure in the new European circular construction actions, and we proposed a number of elements. To name a few, integrate the infrastructure sector within the new strategy for the sustainable built environment. Apparently, this strategy will be part of the Renovation Wave program, so we are very curious to see how that will develop, but also extend the scope of digital logbooks for buildings to infrastructure, and stimulates the use of environmental product declarations, of life cycle assessments in the ongoing revision of the CPR. We will hear more on the current situation regarding this strategy from the Commissioner later on in this program. The next slide. And to further unlock the potential, we need cooperation. We need cooperation through supply chain and across Europe through import and export markets for materials such as cement and steel. After all, supply chains are spread over several countries, and many European economies, including ours, are highly dependent on international raw material flows. And we need international cooperation to make the use of raw materials increasingly efficient and of high quality, but also in the fields of secondary and renewable materials, to create an enabling environment for the transition, but as well as a well-functioning market for these secondary bio-based materials for reused products through appropriate legislation and regulation, to boost knowledge and innovation development, as well as in the field of procurement, international tendering, and sustainable finance. Next slide. And I would like to end my presentation with a call for collaboration. There is an increasing urgency to take serious steps towards a circular European infrastructure. With the COVID-19 pandemic, we are now seeing firsthand how vulnerable our value chains are, and the growing needs to ensure reliable and sustainable access to materials that are so important to our construction sector. And Europe wants to come out stronger and more resilient from this crisis. And with its European Green Recovery Plan, Europe is investing a lot to accelerate the shift towards a low carbon economy and circular economy. And here, the many national infrastructure renovation projects currently underway in Europe can benefit and make a major contribution to that. So I would say, let's seize the momentum, let's work together to create and scale up impact, and let's build together new coalitions for change, which in this case is a coalition towards a European circular infrastructure sector. I hope you feel inspired and energized this afternoon to continue this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'm definitely inspired. Thank you for this great presentation. I heard so many key points. You pointed at the large environmental impact of infrastructure. You pointed out some peculiarities, the long lifespans, the role of government in investments in infrastructure, and the many angles we have to make it scale up as well. We'll hear more during the breakout sessions. Now, infrastructure doesn't stop at the border. Next slide, please. And if we want to have a pan-European infrastructure sector that can help us actually reach Europe's climate neutrality and reach Europe's circular economy goals, then we will have to collaborate over the border. So I'm more than pleased with the presence of Jan Molema, because his topic is most appropriate: the Benelux as a potential testbed for cross-border circular infrastructure. Jan, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Freek. The pleasure is all on our side, I must say, because we prepared this together here at the Benelux House, and it's great to have let's say to be surrounded by good speakers. And I must underline, it was a fantastic last picture you showed us, Jessica, in your presentation of this let's say strong, I suppose, Dutch woman having tailwind going into new ventures. This morning myself, I had a flat tire riding on my bike here through Brussels. So it's good to see that that the dynamics are there. And it all comes very close. While preparing this presentation, which will take you a little bit from what is the Benelux to through what do we do on circular economy and in the construction sector, and ending up with a specific project. It also made me reflect a little bit. We here at the Benelux Corporation have done a lot about, in terms of making legislation, new and innovative legislation for the vehicles on our Benelux roads. But not so much on, let's say, the hardware which we have to work with. And that, of course, as Freek already said, goes cross-border. So next, no, I stay here. The Benelux Corporation, what does it stand for? It's a very small area. It's just 2% of the total European area. But from the, let's say, relational point of view, the population, it's very densely populated. 6% of the total EU population is there, and GDP-wise, we also have quite a good, let's say, position to invest in our infrastructure. What is also interesting to see is that, and we recently had a study issued on that, is that 24% of all air freight goes and comes from the Benelux, and even more impressive, the 78% of the inland waterways or the inland waterway usage comes from or goes through the Benelux area. In other words, if we can solve a specific challenge here in the Benelux, we can do a really good job for the rest of the European Union, as we always try to share the solutions we have. Next slide, please. We share a couple of ambitions, of course, and I think that was already being highlighted by Jessica. We are all in the same pandemic and must come out of this in a stronger way, hopefully. We all have national plans by now on energy, on transport, and so on. But let's not forget the cross-border component, especially for smaller countries like the Benelux countries are. It really makes sense to match, coordinate those plans in an early stage. The EU Green Deal, putting a fantastic target right now of 55% reduction of CO2. But I must admit, we as Benelux countries, we are not front runners in this yet. And the new Circular Economy Action Plan brings in about 35 legislative initiatives. We try to make them work here within the Benelux by bringing our ministries together to work together on those. Next slide, please. Yes. So we have a couple of challenges together, but we also have quite a commitment to circular economy. Recently, we issued our multi-annual plan, in which it plays a major role. We made a number of recommendations in the past years on end of waste criteria. Very important to have similar end of waste criteria so that operators can use them across borders. We did a study into repairability, which is still a challenge to achieve across borders. We'll continue with that in the running year. Let's say the recent one of the first online conferences webinars we did actually was on the Benelux Builds Circular, and I think this today's meeting is a good continuation of that exercise. Next slide, please. And then it's in parallel with the numbers we saw from the Netherlands. The importance of the construction sector is massive. The numbers of extracted materials, the numbers of waste produced. If we can work together on this and reduce that in a cross-border way, we can make a very big impact, we believe here. We share something else. All our economies were built up after the Second World War and realized in the 50s and 60s. That starts to age right now, and all over at the same time. So we have the same challenge at the same time, and it makes sense to look at where we can use the scale of the Benelux countries, as said. The numbers on a very small piece of area are quite impressive. Here you see another few numbers: 126 million tons of construction waste annually, having a financial worth of 72 billion euros. So we have already produced in 2017 a Benelux recommendation on the end or the use of construction and demolition waste. We'd like to promote that further on. Next slide, please. In an international context, the cooperation is already quite intense. We have done a number of pilot projects within the European Union, where we have made standards or laws that facilitate cross-border functioning, running ahead of Europe. The Benelux countries have a facility within the European regulations to complete their internal markets a little bit faster and a little bit further going. And the picture of the truck you see down below was the first truck that could run with longer containers that allow for exactly one pallet more, and thereby transporting less air cross borders. This is being applied already in the Benelux. We passed on the legislation to the European Union, and normally with the next measures and standards legislation, that should be copied into EU legislation. Next slide, please. Here a picture I like a lot myself. It shows actually the denseness of logistics in Europe, and you see that in this very small area, basically the gateway to Europe is being shown, with of course the Antwerp and Rotterdam harbor, and thereby making it a very good area to use this living lab environment that we have from a legal point of view. Also, you can test new innovative approaches within the Benelux using our fast track scenario, and of course also using the legal instrumentariums where you make laws for the three countries at once, trying to move forward together and create a workable environment for the operators. Next slide, please. Then the most important slide of this presentation: how can we make this work in the future? We were very happy this end of last year when the three road operators, basically of the Benelux unions, came to us with the request if they could bring in a project on a road corridor, which you see on this picture, that goes from the city agglomeration in the Netherlands called Randstad all the way down via Antwerp to Luxembourg, and where a massive number of cars are passing, of course, and a massive number of transport takes place every day. But most important for this exercise, massive renovation works will come in the years to come. Already some are taking place. The road authorities have decided some time ago that they would like to share the experience and also the knowledge they gather by renovating, by trying to apply new innovations. And in that sense, they have asked us to create a Benelux knowledge exchange that is a bit formalized on these topics. maintenance and renovation, smart mobility, climate neutrality, data information provision, because also the digital world, of course, plays a role here. In this sense, we as a Benelux house will bring together these experts in a regular way. We'll try to put this on paper, of course, and share this in our turn with our European colleagues when certain conclusions are being reached. So I'm really happy that this exercise today takes place. It's the first, more or less, announcement that we are doing this. We hope that your session will be successful, and I look forward to sharing our expertise in the future. So back to you, Freek. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, for highlighting the work of the Benelux Union. It takes leadership to reach out over the border and create a test bed, and that's based on collaboration in supply chains. It's also based on a market view, and then a market view on a market that's actually more effective, one that can scale, and you use the momentum of a post-COVID society. To all the attendees, I would say that we have to warm you up a little bit. I think you can do better as far as questions for the speakers are allowed. So I hope all these fantastic presentations have inspired you. So don't be shy on the chat. Next slide, please. It's now time for 6 deep dives. On the screen, you will see 6 topics with room numbers. And you will notice that a box will appear with the breakout rooms where you can choose the session which you have booked. Please select the room of your choice. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the plenary session. Well, the European Circular Economy Stakeholder platform is the network of networks. It's a stakeholder platform, as explained by Baiba. So what we need to do if we want to scale up and have a future in Europe, we need to identify new initiatives and make them scale. So we hope to inspire you now as an intermezzo till everybody is back in the room with one collaborative example from the Netherlands that we actually would like to scale in Europe. And with us is Joop Groen, and he's the program manager of the Chaplin products, bio-based asphalt, and he represents a circular and bio-based delta. So while there will be a video playing unmuted in the background, Joop will present us with some comments, and he will extend an invitation to join certain initiatives. Joop, can I give you the floor, please?
Yep, thank you very much, Freek. Can you hear me clear?
Yes, loud and clear.
Excellent. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for the opportunity of sharing our work here. The video will show some of the real work in practice, and yeah, since the text is in Dutch, you will be able to follow it in subtitles. And I'll give a little bit of extra information through voiceover. Is the video visible for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So what we are doing, it's started out as a national Dutch initiative, is working on replacing bitumen in asphalt by lignin as a bio-based source. What we see as a strong strategy for CO2 reduction and also reducing the reliability on fossil feedstocks. It's very effective to change bitumen to lignin. As you can see in the video, that we are no longer just in the lab phase, but we have really scaled it up to the large asphalt plants and to the road. We've got in total around 18 test strips on the road with all different types of combinations of lignin, asphalt formulations, road types, different layers on the road. So there's a lot of valuable experience that we have gained. We do this through collaboration along the value chain. So we have players at the beginning of the value chain, lignin suppliers. We have road builders, the people who own asphalt plants, who have the equipment, like you see here, to build the roads. And of course, the road owners, they are the most important players in this whole value chain, since they determine the specs and determine the priorities, and they can give direction to the whole value chain. And we are lucky to have very strong collaboration of all these different parts of the value chain. Like at the road owners, we have the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Waterworks. We have 5 provinces, we have a number of municipalities. For instance, we have a harbor area, a port as a participant. And to support this whole initiative, we have 5 knowledge players. So these are the partners who know a lot about lignin, about road building, but for instance, also about things like life cycle analysis and calculating independently the CO2 effects. These are organizations such as Wageningen Research, University of Utrecht, TNO, Asphalt Knowledge Center. So by this collaboration of all these parties together, we've been able to make very strong progress in developing lignin-based asphalt from lab to the road, from, let's say, TRL 2.3, where we started, to TRL 6, where we are now. And yeah, really, my invitation here to anybody across Europe who is interested in making such a circular bio-based impact in reducing CO2 emissions, reducing dependence on fossil feedstock, but also helping the road building industry, because bitumen is under pressure in availability, but also in quality, and it will also be under increasing pressure in price. So an alternative also makes a lot of business sense. While doing this, it also improves the business case of biorefineries, because it's a valuable application for lignin. So, if you are interested in this initiative, please contact me. We are making a next step. As I mentioned, this started out as a national initiative, and in our next step, we want to create a large European collaboration. So create a large European project where we continue this work. There's still a lot of questions to be answered until this is a standard feedstock for road building. But it shows great promise that we have shown with the initial work. So we are ready for a next big step. We're looking for partners across Europe to make this happen. So if you're interested, please do not hesitate to let me know. And with this, I give the microphone back to Freek or to Anka, and I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to share this here.
Thank you, Joop. We hope that your product manages to go cross-border as well and can scale up over the border. Please indicate directly to Joop, to his email, or in the chat function if you're interested to explore European collaborations. Thank you, Joop. We go to the next slide, please. Now, you have all been in one breakout room, but nobody has been in all, and they are all relevant if we want to have a circular infrastructure. So what will happen now is that each room will get a 1-minute pitch, that's 60 seconds maximum. And we want to know from them, what are their main takeaways, and especially also what expectations they want to share with the European Commission policy officers, which are in the room and which can reflect on them at the end of our session. So this is almost like a pitching contest for an innovation prize. And I will start with, in inverse order, to change the thing, I will start with Evelien Ploos van Amstel on the circular design and innovation approach for a 1-minute pitch. Your time starts now, Evelien.
Thank you. I think we have a huge renovation and replacement task ahead of us, as well as a challenging circular transition. And I think the main message was that therefore we need a system change, not a singular solution, but a wide range of solutions which are supported by the entire market. And therefore we need a different approach to collaboration, to knowledge sharing, stuff like that. And this will come with up and downs, but first examples we have concerning circular viaducts are promising. And my thing is, but how can we Europe make sure that such developments will not be limited to singular countries or singular products, but that the impact is increased and that we can make a wide impact across Europe.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. We move on directly to Geert Couperus from Waste to Resources for Circular Infrastructure. Geert, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Freek. We discussed the use of secondary materials from waste in infrastructure. And we talk about the potential of 1/3 of all waste in Europe, which is construction and demolition waste plus incinerated bottom ash, which can be used in circular infrastructure. And in that way, at least 20% of virgin materials can be reduced. And there are very good examples in Europe where this is done. So it is very well possible. But what we see is that it's not happening everywhere, despite the fact that there are targets for construction and demolition waste in general. So what was discussed is that we need more. And because, for instance, the price of secondary materials is often higher than for virgin materials. So we need to do more to make this happen. And what we need is to have recycling percentage of for inert C&D waste, for incinerated bottom ash, and we need to have recycled content prescribed in the Eco-Design Directive for secondary materials in road construction.
Thank you, Geert. 12 seconds late. I will hope the jury will be soft on you. We go to Kathleen Reis, the role of local governments. I think a crucial role. What has been discussed there, Kathleen?
Yes, thank you. So in this breakout room, we discussed how local governments are a key implementing partner for the Green Deal and the Circular Economy Action Plan. And that's because they're close to citizens, they're on the front lines of climate action. The priority actions for local governments now are to understand the baseline, to really get the data to understand how things are now, to understand materials and the data to track these and share that with the relevant partners locally. And it's also paramount that cities can enter into networks to exchange good practice from the front runner cities also, and not leaving behind the small municipalities through regional action and collaboration. What's needed from the EU? Listen to cities, take their feedback and identification of remaining barriers into account for policy development and for the revision of regulations. It's of course important to highlight the need for funding and technical support for experimentation and innovation for circular infrastructure solutions to be implemented in local territories. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. We move on to Evert Schut, and he will update us on the new CEN Commission on Circular Construction. Evert, in 60 seconds. We can't hear you, Evert.
Sorry. I hope I convinced the breakout participants that standardization is crucial for circular construction, and why the new CEN subcommittee for circular construction is a great opportunity to reach circular goals. We also discussed how you can participate, and the best thing you can do at this moment is to take part in your national standardization committee, which contributes to the CEN subcommittee for circular construction. For CEN, infrastructure has always been an integral part of construction. Well, obviously, I might add. So I can only repeat in short what my colleague Jessica Leffers has already done so convincingly in her presentation. I hope European Union policy will change their mind and include infrastructure in the European Action Plan, and possibly also in the renovation wave. Thank you.
We hear you loud and clear. Thank you, Evert. We move to Julia Guagou, integrating circular infrastructure into purchasing strategies.
Yes, we first saw why integrate circular economy into purchasing strategies, and then how to design a European collaborative action to integrate circular infrastructure into purchasing strategies. We talk about the fact that most infrastructure projects that were linked to local government, that they also need to follow central government rules and guidance. So what about a collaboration of regional organizations at the European level, driven by a European level? That's a suggestion. There was also a question about green public procurement criteria, if they were mandatory criteria, but actually they are not mandatory, but more guidance. So what about a global action focuses on how to make that guidance automatically respected by buyers? And I suggest by the way, trainings, webinars or studies to support buyers in that way. So the framework of this global action is still to define, and during this session, documents, very interesting documents were also shared. So.
Thank you for that. Last but not least, we have the guys from the material passports, Pablo or Dominique. Who can I give the floor?
Yes, it's me. Thank you, Pablo. Thank you, Freek. We organized 2 polls around the benefits of registration of products and materials and the benefits of digital marketplaces. And the interesting outcomes of these polls were that the benefits of registration are threefold. So the first of all is that people like that you can create material passports, that you get a better insight in the expected material flows, and that it becomes more clear what the overall carbon impact is. The biggest benefit of a digital marketplace is not money, surprisingly, but the biggest benefit is the CO2 impact that you can realize. So I think that's a big gain for Europe. The expectations we have from the European Committee is they can help us and help the transition with giving both the public authorities, but also the market the chance to support this transition towards circularity. And the last advice is to make reuse possible, because lots of laws currently prohibit that.
So we're curious to know how we can make that possible. Thank you, Pablo. Much appreciated. Thanks to all the 6 representatives from the breakout room. It is time that we can grill them with your questions. We've had 3 speakers at the plenary sessions. We had 6 presenters in the breakout groups, and we will have at the end policy officers. So very curious which questions have popped up. So I will ask these questions to Boukje van Rijn from Rijkswaterstaat, who is our chat moderator. Please select a few of the maybe most interesting questions that you have seen. Please keep the question short, and also the answer, let's keep it within a minute that we can deal with more questions. Boukje.
Yes, thank you, Freek. Well, we haven't had that many questions in the chat, so we should be able to take a few. And I think the first question that is probably interesting is related to Baiba's presentation. The renovation wave is aimed at buildings, and why doesn't it cover infrastructure at this moment? A few people have mentioned that it would be very helpful, so maybe we could get a little more insight on that. So if Baiba is
Thank you for
there,
gathering questions. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Following, also participating in the breakout sessions. Yes, it is a very interesting question. Actually, we can ask why many things are not there in the renovation wave strategy, because we asked the question why residential sector is not there, because this is very important for the municipalities level if we talk about emissions, and also talking about and the social concerns about energy poverty locally on the ground. Why infrastructure is not there? It's a very tricky question, because I think the coverage is already quite wide, and actually there are many things that comes out from this renovation rate strategy that we need to work on future. For example, minimum energy performance standards. We really need to have some common understanding in the European member states, and using these minimum energy performance standards in order that tenants and owners would know the energy consumption in their houses, because currently there are very different schemes existing in Europe. This probably are going back to the colleague talking about standards, because standards is essential and sometimes for consumers really important to know. Yeah, so it's very open question about infrastructure, because it is part, of course. I see also point if we talk about smart mobility, or if we talk about other infrastructure issues, it is related, of course. Yeah, but at the moment, as I can I can open as the rhetoric question. Thank you for question.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Let's go to the next question that was related to the presentation of Jessica, but I'm really not sure if she can answer this one. So maybe if anybody feels that they can answer this question, please do so. What could or should be the role of the European taxonomy for investing in the field of circular infrastructure?
Yes, it's indeed a very, how to say, a challenging question. And I myself have not heard a lot about the taxonomy, but we will have a European officer talking about taxonomy just in a few moments, so we can probably spare this question for him. But this really, I think, regards the whole discussion about finance and how to ensure that circularity becomes also attractive to the industry, to the sector. So I hope that that he can follow up on this one.
Okay, let's wait for that then. Another question, but I should probably ask Evert to answer this one. And he already talked a little bit about that in the in his presentation. But for the people who weren't there, what role could product standards fulfill in unlocking the potential of circular infrastructure?
Well, a lot of subjects you could tackle. For instance, well, all construction products, whether it's at the materials level or the products level, or perhaps even at the complete construction level, there are standards. And if you want all these products and constructions, etc., to be circular, you need circular standards. It's really quite simple. If you want to have a percentage secondary materials in your products, you need to set the standard to make sure that the materials you use are safe. You know, we don't want houses or bridges to fall down. And so setting standards for products and materials is a certain issue, as is measuring circularity, for instance, for procurement, but also other uses. Perhaps standards for the material data. You want to be able to communicate. You need to be able to use the data in the Netherlands, which a company in, I don't know, France or wherever, Belgium, you name it, that company produces not just a product, but also information about the product. And we want to be able to understand this and to use this information. So there's a lot of subjects which have to be standardized.
Okay, thank you, Evert. I think the importance came across pretty well. Thank you. Let's see a question that was related to Jan's presentation. Are we aware of other cross-border collaborations on circular infrastructure in Europe? Are we already collaborating on a larger scale, or are we still doing things mostly nationally?
Okay, we do not have Jan in the...
Ah, okay.
Well, hello, this is Yvonne speaking, also from the General Secretariat. I mean, we know that the Benelux in that aspect is quite unique, but we of course also do know that, for example, the Baltic states do cooperate and do exchange knowledge, as do, for example, the Nordic member states, so Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and even Iceland. So I'm sure there are other cross-border exchanges, but okay, the Benelux has as an advantage that we are very well structured and organized, and that we have a treaty as a basis for our cooperation. That also gives us some tools to cooperate, including establishing these legal or political instruments that help us develop specific things and agree on specific things. So I'm fairly sure that there are other cross-border cooperations. But okay, we are unique in the sense of the opportunities that we have got on a legal and political basis, and also our position in Europe in the sense that the European Union allows us to integrate further than most other European member states.
Okay, thank you. I see some questions and other remarks popping up in the chat now. So I think we will try to answer them using the LinkedIn page, because given the time, I think it's time for the closing remarks, right, Freek?
Well, thank you. I think we would have had maybe some time for one or more questions, but we have shared so much input to the policy office from the European Commission, and that I think both of them need all their time to provide their answers. And we're very happy with their presence. We get a sneak preview of what's happening or going to happen at the European level of the European Commission. We have Lupi with us, and we have Philippe Moseley with us. And I first like to share the stage with Anna to give us a 5-minute overview of what's happening on her side.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you very much for inviting me. And I found all this discussion very, very useful. Just to say that I come from the perspective of someone who works on public procurement policy. So I think there's still a lot to learn from our side on the specific topic of infrastructure. I think we're starting to in the last 2 or 3 years to really scratch the surface, but it's really a very complex ecosystem, I have to say. From what I've heard today, I can only conclude that we share the same ambitions. I mean, this is clearly a very favorable moment to talk about circularity and introduction of green considerations in public procurement. We've had, as you know, our foundation is the Green Deal, obviously, but the ambition, I think, was only strengthened by the recovery effort and the money that's going to be spent in the next few years. So we're even more keen to support the effort of member states and public bodies in introducing circular and green considerations in procurement. I think we also share a lot of the challenges. I mean, a lot of what I heard and some of the solutions that you came up with are actually quite fitting in our current thinking in the European Commission. I mean, you have probably all seen the Circular Economy Action Plan that we published last year. There are basically 2 lines of actions as far as procurement is concerned. And the first one, which is absolutely crucial, is introducing mandatory green public procurement criteria in sectorial legislation. And this will be done through a number of different initiatives. So the idea is not to introduce a general obligation to go for green procurement at European level, but rather to focus on the sectors, because then we can better address the specificities of each sector. And some of the legislation will not even be, strictly speaking, sectorial, because some of you may know that, for example, the Energy Efficiency Directive will also be revised, and it's these kind of instruments that often set, let's say, requirements for a very broad range of procurements that will also be involved in this process. But of course, this goes also well beyond construction and infrastructures. The other line of action is of course continuing our work on supporting member states and public authorities, and this is something that was also discussed, I feel, today. There is a need indeed for more technical support at national and also at local level. We've seen a great deal of improvement in many member states, some of which are not always the usual suspects, I have to say. Someone in the chat was talking about Italy, for example, and we know, of course, of a lot of Southern and Eastern European member states who are also moving from this point of view. Of course, you know, we have great examples in the north of Europe, but this is just to say that we are very much aware of the fact that we should not leave anyone behind. And one of the ideas is precisely to produce guidance on investing in sustainable infrastructure through procurement. And the idea of the guidance is a bit revolving around the European taxonomy on sustainable finance, which at the moment is applicable mostly to exclusively to private finance. But the idea is to explore how the taxonomy can provide clear and shared definitions of sustainability for the public sector, so that we can also use those to make it slightly easier for public buyers to integrate sustainability considerations throughout the whole project cycle when they are procuring infrastructure. So that is a little bit a general overview. I don't want to overdo it because this topic is extremely wide. But thank you very much, and of course, if you have any questions, you can always contact me.
Thank you so much, Anna. Very insightful, and keep working on the good cause on behalf of all of us. I gladly open the floor to your colleague, Philippe Moseley. He's from Sustainable Industrial Policy and Construction angle, and he probably will tell us a little bit more about the taxonomy work, Horizon Europe, and other European events that are on the horizon. Philippe, please enlighten us.
Yes, hello. Nice to be here, and it's been very interesting listening to all the comments. So I'm in the same Directorate General in the Commission as Anna, DG Grow, but whereas she's working on procurement, I'm working in the construction unit, and I'm responsible especially for resource efficiency aspects of construction. So there's, I mean, it was said right at the beginning of the event that there's a lot happening in buildings and not so much in infrastructure, but actually, if you put them all in a list, as I've done to tell you today, there are actually quite a few things happening in infrastructure for circularity. The first thing I can say is that only last week the Commission unveiled an update to the new industrial strategy, and this was because there was a new industrial strategy in March 2020, and the very next day, when it was unveiled, the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic, and so almost immediately we went to work on doing an update to it in the light of the pandemic. Construction has got a prominent place in the strategy. Probably the most important piece of information for you is that the strategy says we're going to be working on a transition pathway for construction to deliver on the twin green and digital transitions. So what we're going to do is we're going to be working with industry and stakeholders to co-create this twin transition pathway. This will take some time. We don't yet have a timetable for this, but it will probably involve some big meetings or forums with industry and stakeholders over the coming months. So that's the first thing. The second one that I also mentioned in the parallel session that I attended was the revision of the construction products regulation, which is ongoing at the moment. So the purpose of this is to improve the way the regulation works across the single market for the marketing of construction products, but especially there's a focus on better integrating sustainability criteria into the construction products regulation. So that should be happening this year, and so towards the end of the year probably, and that will, I think, have an effect on the information that is available in construction products. Then on the EU taxonomy, so we're working at the moment on the next delegated act, following the first delegated act that's already been published now with a set of criteria for investments into, well, green investments. There's a next set of criteria being developed, and one of them is a circular economy and infrastructure, and also one in buildings, and there are various other criteria being developed on issues such as biodiversity and circular economy, and so that work is ongoing. It's going to probably take the rest of the year. It's a technical working group working together to develop these criteria for how to define a sustainable investment in circularity in infrastructure. So that'll have I think a big effect when it comes out on financing. Then we've also mentioned the Horizon Europe program, which is going to be adopted and published quite soon now, probably in June. There isn't a specific date yet, but this is the biggest ever program for research and innovation in Europe, and that will feature infrastructure, and it will feature aspects of circular economy. So there'll be some EU research funding made available through that, and not to forget also to mention the LIFE program, which has in the past supported a lot of projects on circularity and infrastructure, things like some of these asphalt solutions we've heard about, and some of these other methods of integrating circular products in infrastructure works. The LIFE program also is an ongoing program. It's going to have a new budget. Then in terms of just getting hold of information generally, on our website and DG Grow, we have the European Construction Sector Observatory. And this is a part of the website that includes a searchable database of national reports and policy fact sheets, and also a kind of data mapper to create graphs and data all about the construction industry. So there's a lot of information there in general on construction right across all the member states of Europe. Quite interesting reports and data available there. And then the last thing probably to mention, especially because in the session that I was in, there was mention of one of the main benefits that would come from having a digital marketplace for materials would be CO2 reduction. And obviously climate and energy is a big focus at the moment with the Green Deal in Europe, and there's a very big legislative package under preparation called Fit for 55, which will implement the climate law that commits Europe to 55% greenhouse gas emissions reduction, and so various pieces of legislation are going to be revised. Anna's already mentioned the Energy Efficiency Directive. There's also the emission trading scheme and several others that perhaps indirectly but would still have an impact on but certainly material production and energy-intensive industries, things like concrete and cement and steel and so on that is used in infrastructure. So these are very important policy initiatives that are underway. I think that I've covered quite a few things there, so I'll just leave it there. But I'm happy to hear any other views. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippe. Thank you, Anna, for giving us this insight in what's happening. We're also looking in anticipation towards June, what's popping up in Horizon Europe. As the world is more and more circular, we hope that you're willing to be back with us at another session of a circular infrastructure group like we have today. We're reaching the end. Not only thank you to Anna and Philippe for their reflections, but also many thanks to all speakers and all organizers. And I think we agree here as this group that infrastructure should get more attention at the European Commission level because it's impactful, it's relevant. We have already seen that lots of things are already happening today. So we have tools, we have best practices. It has to grow. And the momentum here after COVID-19 seems actually perfect. This is not the end of a webinar. We hope that it's the beginning of a journey towards circular infrastructure. But we can only create circular infrastructure and use the momentum if we work together. And we keep this group together digitally, in person when it's possible. We have to work on innovation projects like the Chaplin projects. We have to work on policies and regulation in many fields. We have to show leadership in the field, and we have to start cross-border collaboration like the Nordics and the Benelux have shown us. So keep up the good work of all of you. All the questions which have not been answered, all the discussions we did not have yet because time was not permitting it, will continue in the forum of the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform, but also in this new dedicated LinkedIn platform. I hope my colleagues can share the link also with you in the chat, or we keep you updated afterwards. So keep following us. Be also a change leader on this platform. Keep informing us what's happening. Only together we can make it happen. Thank you for your attention. It was a great pleasure having you all. And as far as I'm concerned, it was very insightful. So thank you and see you back soon in another session.